Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer. Welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, my weekly interview show where I get a deep perspective into somebody else's perspective on movies. And this time I have my pal Nash here from SiftPop because I feel like if you're right for SiftPop, you'll wind up here eventually. But Nash, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, happy to be here. Excited.
Yeah, this is first time on my channel, so
Yep.
exciting times. Is there anything you'd like to plug? Maybe like any articles you have coming up or anything besides that?
I'm a bit of a coward and I haven't written any full length articles, but I will plug just SiftPop in general. I think it produces a lot of really great work. Um, and so, and I do have, like, I contribute to some lists over there. But if you want to see me rant about movies or sports or anything, you can go over to my Twitter, which is Nash_Doll, or my letterbox, where I watch dozens of movies a week. So you can pick apart my opinions there at also Nash_Doll.
And that's always a fun thing. Letterbox is great.
Mm-hmm.
And it's awesome seeing people like I know I was on earlier seeing everybody's who got lucky to see Thor start popping up and being like, I'm seeing this
Mm-hmm.
Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't look so great, but we'll
Yeah,
find out.
yeah. I also saw those, and I'm trying to be like, it'll don't let it impact me. Don't let it impact me. I like Taika. I like these people involved. But yeah,
I
it
just
was a
feel
bummer
like
to see that. But yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are being like, especially with like phase four, particularly like divisive about everything. And like people trashed Eternals. Outside of Spider-Man and Shang-Chi, I feel like a lot of the movies have been getting like not the hottest responses. And like I really enjoyed Multiverse of Madness a lot. So
Yeah, I did
I
too.
had a blast. And I hope to have a blast on Thursday when I go see Thor Love and Thunder. But here is my interview show where we get a chance to get to know my guest a little bit more in terms of movies. And always love to start with everybody's least favorite question, which is what's your favorite film, Nash?
Yeah, okay. You always, as a movie fan, you always know that this question is going to come. Like if I tell a random, like somebody I've just met, oh, I like movies. What's your favorite movie? I don't know. And like everybody says, it alternates a lot. The safest answer, which I feel like has been said a lot on your show, is The Lord of the Rings. But I'm not going to say that for the sake of it is three movies. You can count it as one movie. You can count it as three movies. But to be a little bit more creative than that, because that's like a safe space movie. Recently, I have become obsessed with a movie called The Fisher King. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but yeah,
I
Robin Williams.
love me some Terry Gilliam, and I remember seeing that in cinema class in high school and loving it ever since.
Yeah, I saw that movie when I was probably too young to watch it. That's a lot of the movies that I've watched. Um, and that was like it was like that and Mrs. Doubtfire that like really fueled my love of Robin Williams as a child. Also strange that it wasn't like Aladdin. But yeah, I think as I've gotten older and I've watched it more frequently, like I just watched it a couple of months ago. And it just really struck a chord with me. I think it's a really beautiful, story. And it's unfortunately kind of poignant to like current events as well with some of the events that happen in that movie. But
Mhm.
um, I think when we talk about Robin Williams and the performances that he's in, like, or the performances that he's done, people are usually like, hey, he's a great actor. He's a great comic actor. But I don't feel like people bring that performance up enough,
Mhm.
where he's doing everything in that role. He's doing his
Yep.
kind of zany comedy, but he also brings it, like, there's a lot of trauma in that role. And so I've been saying that one a lot more frequently just to get people to watch it, but it's also not a lie because I absolutely adore that movie.
Oh, it's such a great film, and it's weird, but it's
Yep,
also Terry Gilliam's most accessible film.
precisely. Yeah.
Because at least it has an understandable and very human redemptive arc in it. And Jeff Bridges is great, and Robin Williams just steals the show, and it has great Grail lore, and
Mhm.
it has those Terry Gilliam visuals at points. That Red Knight is horrifying.
God, it's terrifying that's why I was like, as a kid, this would have freaked me out. Why did I watch this as a child?
Yeah, and you are right. There's some there. It's important to know there's some triggering things that happen in this
Mhm.
film that are very relevant to, unfortunately, a lot of things that are happening today. So be warned.
Mhm.
But it is a film that has two great actors doing some great work and a very imaginative director who brings in a lot of magical realism
Mhm.
into a really moving story. So
Yeah.
I love Fisher King. So glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Now, what is your earliest memory of going to the movies?
Yeah. So when I was trying to prep for this, I was trying to draw on my memory bank. So from where I'm from, I lived in the middle of nowhere, so we didn't get to go to the movies very often.
Mhm.
So I think the first movie that I ever saw in theaters was Elf. Um, Now, but I don't really remember that experience. So I think I often go into The Bourne Ultimatum,
Okay.
which it's a great movie to watch in theaters, and I had a great time. But yeah, I didn't get to see a ton of movies in theaters, so my movies that I did see were like I was weirdly older.
Mhm.
Like I don't have like a Shrek or The Lion King or something, which I wish I had seen when I was a kid. But yeah, so yeah, I think it's Born Ultimatum that I have like the earliest memory of walking out of the theater and being like, "Wow, this movie's so cool! I want to be, I want to jump from a ledge into a window." Like I was like so riveted, and it's like a very early moment in my okay, movies might be my thing that I like really fall like love.
It was that was still at a time when that came out that I didn't go to the movies a whole lot. Like I sporadically went to the actual theater growing up, and it usually was like a special thing. Like I remember seeing Lord of the Rings. I saw all three of them in theaters. I saw Shrek. And I remember buying the Bourne movies on DVD because actually I got the first one in one of those old like mail-in movie clubs,
Oh wow, yeah,
and then I wound up getting the next two when they came out on DVD. And Bourne Ultimatum is still one of like the best action movies of the 21st century, and
absolutely.
it's something special, and that's a cool early memory of going to see a movie
Mhm.
because Matt Damon. It just makes me think of 40-Year-Old Virgin now. It's like, I always thought that Damon was a Streisand, but he really kicks some ass in this movie.
You're right. Yeah. Oh yeah, you're right. That's great.
Now, Nash, do you have a particular favorite genre of movies?
Um, Truthfully, no. Like I think I've heard you say that you'll watch anything, and I'm almost the same way. Like
Mhm.
out of curiosity, I went on because if you like pay for Letterboxd, you can go in and you can look at your stats,
Yeah.
and it's my number one and number two are comedies and dramas. Those are the movies that I'm gravitating towards the most. But I, when I was younger, I probably would have said science fiction or fantasy. But as I've gotten older, I don't really have a favorite anymore because I like all movies, with the exception of I have a harder time with horror movies. Like I need to be more picky and choosy with
Yeah.
horror movies. But yeah, so no, I don't necessarily have a like. If it's just like an average day, it's probably going to have some comedic elements or some like it's going to be a dramatic movie, which all movies are dramatic movies. But
Yeah. If they're doing it right,
yeah.
they're making you feel some things.
Mhm.
And I feel like there are some genres that are harder to make work. And
Yeah.
horror is definitely one of them. I think fantasy is definitely one of them because boy, are there like 8 out of 10 horror movies are just straight trash.
And that was the reason why I used to say science fiction fantasy was my favorite. But I was like, man, as I've got like the batting average of science fiction or fantasy movies is pretty low. It feels like
Especially fantasy.
like you have you have the pinnacle all-time classics, and then you just have some absolute garbage. And it's just,
I feel like with fantasy outside of animation, it's really hard to make fantasy work. And also not to feel extremely derivative of other things that came before it. And that's like, it's a once in a lifetime thing of like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones, which honestly, some of the best parts of Game of Thrones is all the politics and stuff like that. So it's not even like the fantasy elements.
absolutely.
Like you're like, oh wait, there's dragons in this? Honestly, and like obviously Lord of the Rings has its fantasy on its sleeve. It's like very obvious kind of thing. But like, yeah, it's really hard to make them work. And I was really I know I was personally disappointed by the Wheel of Time show. I'm just like, this just feels like people cosplaying, making a fantasy show. God, please let that Lord of the Rings show not feel that way.
I have a lot of hope because I mean everything I've heard is really great so far in terms of like that early stuff. So I'm fingers really crossed that Amazon plans.
Yeah, because we're about to get punched with some serious fantasy with Game of Thrones prequel series and Lord of the Rings show within like a month.
I keep forgetting about that. Is it the Targaryen show or?
Yep, it's something of dragons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Matt Smith with long blonde hair.
Yep. Yeah. There's very few people who could pull off that Targaryen look because like that hair is something else. But Nash, do you have any particular favorite filmmakers that you like gravitate to?
Yeah. So I mean, the default answer, and the reason why it's the default answer is because I think I probably owe everything I love about movies is to Steven Spielberg.
Mm-hmm.
I had this conversation the other day with somebody. Like, I don't know if he's necessarily my favorite filmmaker anymore, but he is what movies are kind of to me. Like you grow up and like watching E.T. on VHS and Jaws and Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park. So I will like, I see a Spielberg movie coming out. I'm like, okay, well, I'm obviously going to go see this. Now, more recently, they're not all hits, but so he's probably somebody I gravitate towards the most. In terms of more modern directors, Denis Villeneuve and Alex Garland. Basically everything they have touched, I think, is almost gold. And anytime I see their names, I'm like, yes, let's go. As a writer, as a producer, as a director, I'm all in. I haven't seen Min yet because friends of mine have been like, the ending's a little rough. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll watch that.
That is such an interesting film because like I'm a huge fan of Alex Garland too, and Ex Machina is one of my favorite films.
Same.
And I got to go to a press screening of Men. And when you walk out of press screening and they have like some of the reps there, they're just like, what are some of your thoughts? And I'm like, everybody walking out is like,
I don't know, man.
And I wound up getting in an argument with my wife's best friend, who's a good friend of mine too, for 45 minutes afterwards about the movie and like its commentary on sexism and stuff like that. And like, it makes you think. And like, that's a tricky thing because I've seen people put it on their bottom of list. It's definitely towards the top of my list. Like, I thought it was great. Like, I do think that the ending goes a bit of a bridge too far. It's just like, could have reined that in a bit. But I've seen some people argue, it's like, is this his story to tell? Because it really is like a woman's experience and stuff like that. And like, I get that. But all of his films are something else, though.
Yep.
And Denis Villeneuve is feel like on a whole other level of filmmaking than like 99% of directors.
Yeah. Somebody said something one time, and I'm stealing this quote, but it's like, if sometimes it feels like when I'm watching a Denis movie that it doesn't feel like how is he in the class of some of these other people? Like he's operating at a level that other people can only dream to be at, which is mind blowing to me that he was able to do that on I like various types of scales
Yeah.
too. Like you watch something like Prisoners, which is pretty tight, pretty small, pretty compact, and then you have Dune,
Dune.
or 2049, who are these like huge sprawling, and he nails it all. I don't think there's a real weakness in any of his filmography so far.
So there's certain films, and like I've been asking this to people on their third go around on my interview show, is a film that has truly like made an impact on you and felt like it changed your life. I'm like, I remember watching Prisoners for the first time and just being like, I don't think I felt this tense and uncomfortable ever watching a movie and still being extremely engaged in it. I threw that in there because climax. Because like that movie stressed me the hell out, but I'm just like, I'm not having fun. Like I'm not I feel like I'm getting a whole lot out of this. But like Prisoners is something else. And I don't think you'll see Hugh Jackman better. He terrified me. I was scared watching that movie. But Denis Villeneuve is just something else. And between Blade Runner 2049 and Dune, he's just showing it's like he's on a whole other level of fantasy and science fiction. And you're just like, well.
Oh, and Arrival too. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's and like he's just delivering, and they're both really great filmmakers, and I could definitely see that. And we'll definitely have to talk about Spielberg as I'm doing my deep dive into every single Spielberg film. Still have some openings. Now, in front of the camera, who are some of your favorite actors and actresses?
For the longest time, and that's why I have to mention him, Denzel Washington is the GOAT in my eyes. I in preparation for this, I was like, let me scroll through his IMDb. Like, let's just take a look. I genuinely don't think he's ever given a bad performance. I think Denzel is in a movie and he's killing it. Sometimes he's maybe like just kind of doing a Denzel thing, but that is inherently also fun or and very engaging. I'll watch. He's, in terms of somebody with like a long film history, I think I've seen almost every single one of his movies except for The Devil in a Blue Dress. Is that it? Or Something in a Blue Dress?
I don't think I've seen that one either.
Okay. Well, anyways, so he is incredibly high on my list. But recently, as I've been doing more of a deep dive back in history, Robert Redford has, like, I've obviously seen him in things, in some of his bigger things, but I watched Jeremiah Johnson for the first time recently.
So you know where the gift comes from.
I did. That was very surprising. I was like, oh, this is it.
I remember watching that movie for the first time and just being like, wait a minute, that's Robert Redford?
And I've just been like, and I've seen several of his movies recently, and there's just something about, he makes really subtle things in his facial expressions and his voice. Like, he's maybe not always the most dynamic, like he's not out there giving a Daniel Day-Lewis performance, but he's like, he molds himself to the movie really, really perfectly, and he humanizes every character that he plays, and by just very subtle things that I started to pick up on as I've gotten older. And I'm just like, man, you're incredible. And he's also a director. Some of his movies are better than others, but So those are the two I've been saying recently. And then on the actress side, Kate Blanchett. I don't think she misses either. She's that like Denzel thing where like Kate Blanchett's in a movie, you're getting a great performance from Kate Blanchett.
Like there's that, because like for me, there's definitely some movies where I'm just like, because like I don't know if she even had a whole lot to do in Indiana Jones and King of the Crystal Skull, but like
I actually forget she's in that sometimes.
it's like do a Russian accent. That's it. That's the only direction you're getting for this movie. But she's such a great actress. And I remember seeing Blue Jasmine for the first time and just being like, wow.
I saw that 2 weeks ago. I watched that for the first time 2 weeks ago. And that's kind of what affirmed that in my head of like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And like going back to Redford, like even in something like he pops up in a Marvel movie. And I feel like is a really underappreciated antagonist because like he does that role so well and he's still doing it. And I remember, and because like I'm a big fan of Paul Newman, and seeing him and Robert Redford and Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid is something else. And like there were some great actors at that time in film, and Robert Redford's one of them. And you know, I'm a huge fan of Quiz Show. I love that film.
It's perfect. I got that as a recommendation in the past couple of years, and since then I've watched it 4 times. Oh God, it's so good, so good.
Now, what's a film, Nash, that you feel like you could literally watch every day?
I watch a lot of weird movies, and so I was like rolling through my head what could possibly, because I have some weird ones that I could say, but probably Die Hard. Like it's the first movie I think I ever watched that I can remember watching. So this goes back to way too young to watch this movie, but my father loved it.
It's never too young to watch Die Hard.
I have almost definitely seen it probably 200 times, and I'll watch it 1,000 more times in my lifetime. Like it doesn't get old. I really like, I can have it on in the background if I'm working. I can, I know basically every moment and every line, like the back of my hand. I think it's a perfect action movie. I think it redefined the action genre.
It's a perfect film.
Yeah.
Like it works on so many levels. And I feel like as a self-professed action movie snob, because like I really am. Like I'll be watching an action movie and like they cut around the stuntman, didn't they? and be like, why was there 50 cuts in 10 seconds? Look at you taking 3. That if Liam Neeson can't hop a fence, don't have Brian Mills hop a fence. But I feel like on some level, Die Hard gets overlooked, especially now with between like Mission Impossible and John Wick and Mad Max Fury Road. But like there is nothing more perfect than Die Hard. Every character is memorable, and like I'm Agent Johnson. This is Special Agent Johnson. Paul Gleason as like, I swear I had this realization the last time I watched him. Like, if they wanted to make him slightly more likable, I could totally see Clint Eastwood being that character and being that detective. Like, but like you need him to be an asshole and for us to hate him. So you got Paul Gleason, because in the 80s, there's only 2 people we hated most: Paul Gleason and David Atherton, who's also in it. Because him as that reporter is and he'll always go down in history as Dickless over there from Ghostbusters.
Yep.
Like, greatest line delivery ever. Like, we were doing fine until Dickless over here shut down our machine. Is this true? Yes. In fact, this man has no dick. Bill Murray's a national treasure. But and Bruce Willis, that's like the most iconic Bruce Willis will ever be. and him and John McClane, and that's what they ruined, especially in the fifth one when they made him so unlikable and like survive literally anything. He's us. He's just a guy. He's just a cop.
Yeah.
And just want to, it's like, come out to LA, have some laughs, have a good time. It's all I wanted.
Yeah. Well,
And
especially in that era too, where you're getting the muscled out like roid guys, Stallone and
this was the era of Arnold and Sly. And then
yeah.
you have Bruce Willis show up and like make the best movie out of all of them. Because there's some great action movies though, the late '80s like that. But Die Hard's fantastic, and I can't even tell you how many times I've watched Die Hard. So now, Nash, what's a film that you connect with closely because it relates to another interest of yours?
So I will say that I love baseball, and so I could have gone the baseball route. And to tie it even more together, I could say The Natural with Robert Redford.
There you go.
That was an early favorite for mine, but I kind of wanted to pivot away from that because I love journalism.
Okay.
And I love like courtroom stuff depicted really. So I think Spotlight is a movie that does something. It does journalism in a way that you almost never see in in film. The way it goes about, and like it somehow creates tension and just people talking about events and people talking about interviewing and or just there's a scene where I forget the actor where he realizes that one of the people on the list of priests who were bad lived right down the street, and it's just a long take of him leaving the house and walking down the street, and is it Stuhlbarg? That's not, no, is it?
He's a really famous Broadway actor.
Yeah.
And Brian Darcy James or something.
Yes.
Yeah, because he's Shrek in Shrek the Musical. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah, I know. I remember that scene specifically. Yeah, Brian Darcy James.
And it's just a simple scene of just like him feeling this terror that comes through of like, oh my gosh, this is literally a block away from me, and it's transitioned so well. But also, I think every part of that movie, every character in that movie is really perfect. I don't feel like investigative journalism gets done super well or accurately, even in a lot of movies. Like things get skirted around, and this it felt very authentic to how it probably went down in terms of the loopholes and the hoops that they had to jump through. And I thought it was riveting. Like I was on team. I was happy that movie won that year. And so like when I think about investigative journalism movies, I now think about Spotlight because I think it does it the best. Yeah.
It's very interesting that you bring up Spotlight because this movie makes me irrationally angry. And I'll tell you why it makes me irrationally angry.
Oh no.
Is because it did win Best Picture and beat Mad Max Fury Road.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I have to admit, I've seen it once, and I do think I owe it another watch because I don't know if I appreciated it as much when I watched it the first time. Because, like, I'm trying to think, 2015, I was old enough, but like I was right out of undergrad college. In 2015, I had just started grad school, and like obviously I went in with a very big chip on my shoulder that night at the Oscars because I'm just like, Mad Max better win every single thing. It didn't make me as mad as when Inarritu won Best Director over George Miller. That upset me a lot.
Oh yeah, that one I could see. Yeah.
But I do have to give Spotlight a rewatch. But like there's like it's interesting because I've only seen it once, but that scene popped up in my head right away. And I remember his face and that whole entire sequence of just like, that's unsettling to think about. It's like, They're right there.
Yeah.
These are people that you know, and they're people you're supposed to trust. And I grew up, I'm confirmed Roman Catholic too. And it's just like,
Oh. Oh.
and it's just like, I would describe myself as agnostic and non-practicing at this point, because like a lot of feelings about organized religion, like a lot of feelings,
Yeah.
and like this is one of the main reasons why, because because that's very holy and very God honoring, doing stuff like that, and Spotlight really puts a spotlight on it. There you go. I went there. But it's definitely a film that I am interested to see, because it's always those kinds of things when you have hindsight, and what's it been, 7 years at this point since that Academy Award. Well, came out in 2015, so like the Oscars were in the beginning of 2016. It's like thinking about what's going to stand the test of time. And it's interesting what came out that year, because like you have Mad Max Fury Road, which like the internet will always have as like one of the greatest action movies of all time, because it really is. The Revenant came out, Leo finally won his Oscar, and it was like one of the least high profile films was Spotlight that won. And it does have an incredible ensemble. Like if you look at that cast, you're just like, this is ridiculous. They got this many people together. And I personally have such a huge soft spot for Brooklyn. I wish that got some more love that year. But that was like the little movie that could that year, kind of thing in 2015. But it'll be interesting to see if Spotlight is still strongly remembered as much as it is. And, I feel like there's going to be people like me who always remember, it's like, that was the movie that beat Mad Max.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But I feel like it's something that is too important to not appreciate. Because let's be real here. Like, obviously, Mad Max has some thoughts about the world, but like, it's not as important as something like Spotlight. Yeah. So it's a different kind of thing, and very hard movies to compare, honestly. But now, what movie character do you feel like you connect with on a personal level?
I will probably actually, I think, get into this a little bit later. When I watch movies, it's the characters that often are what fuel my continuing to watch them, and my love of a movie is finding characters that I either want to be or that I see myself in. So a lot of character-driven stories are often my favorite types of movies. So this isn't, well, again, impossibly hard, because I think there's a lot. When I was a kid, like I always would probably have said Sam from Lord of the Rings, not because I think I'm the true hero of the story, not at all. It's that I saw a lot of the qualities of Sam in myself, and then I wanted to identify those. But I would say recently, the one that like hit me like a ton of bricks, because I felt like I was watching a version of what I could be on screen, with Jonathan Larson in Tick, Tick, Boom.
Okay.
And his relationship with art, and what he was trying to do, what he was struggling to do. And while kind of the world around him, like his best friend had moved away from it and he decided to set it aside and go for a more corporate job. And I saw so much of myself in that and who he was. Like, I am nowhere near as talented as Jonathan Larson. But the things that he was fearing, and that he was being pulled away from, and like, am I doing the right thing? I'm almost 30. I don't have any success yet. Should I put this aside? Should I try to focus on something else? Like, how important is my art to me? I thought it was beautiful, and it just really that movie wrecked me. And I don't know why. Well, I do know why, but it was like a visceral response, because I was like, I can see versions of myself in the way he was portraying that character. And also Andrew Garfield did such an incredible job. But
Amazing. Oh, I still on some level wish that he won Best Actor, because like he was doing something on a whole other level. And even just from a comfort perspective, we've had to deal with the Best Actor speech that we got at the award ceremony.
yeah,
But you know, I felt like that was like it's Will Smith's time to shine. Unfortunately, it made it really awkward.
yeah.
I do have to say, so Tick Tick Boom came out on my 30th birthday.
Wow.
I
Wow.
got home from work and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna watch Tick Tick Boom tonight, King Richard tonight. And I'm sitting there and that song comes on, I'm just like, I feel like I'm being personally attacked right now. And because like it was so prophetic too, and like I could definitely understand that, because I feel like on some level everybody has a dream
Mhm.
that they would love to chase. And I know for me personally, I have unrealistic dream, realistic dream job, and then what I could have been. And luckily, I'm in the middle with my more realistic dream job, because, like, I have an undergrad and master's of accountancy. Could have been an accountant. I would have been miserable. But I work at a college and I teach statistics. I run a tutoring center and stuff like that. And like that's my realistic dream job. Unrealistic dream job, I'd love to be making movies. And
Mhm.
like this is the kind of thing that like all this stuff scratches that itch, but like I'm too risk adverse of a person, also would explain the accounting thing, to like take that big of a leap. So like I don't know if I, because like I've written stuff, but you know, I feel like that film really strikes that chord in terms of like how far will you go to chase that,
Mhm.
and how much adversity will you put yourself through, because he puts himself through a lot and it paid off.
Mhm.
But obviously for his story as a whole, extremely tragic, dying way too young, literally on the eve of
Oh
his
God.
biggest success. And if he could live one more day and see how big Rent became,
Mhm.
I wonder how he would feel about that.
The impact he had on the world with that story. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I felt that when that movie ended, I'm just like,
Mhm.
that really got me. What a year for musicals. What a year
Yeah.
for Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Well, yeah.
Because like between that and Kanto and In the Heights,
Mhm.
which unfortunately made way too little money than it should have.
Yeah.
I loved In the Heights.
So did
Um,
I.
but last year was a great year for musicals, and I think Tick Tick Boom, like Tick Tick Boom, was right at the top there. I'm just like, damn, this movie, it shocked me because I did not expect that. I didn't know what to expect from it, to be perfectly frank, but
Yeah.
didn't expect that, and it was something else. Now, what's a film you feel like you love that would surprise people?
Um. Well, we've already talked about I am horror adverse.
Yep.
Averse. Yeah. Uh. But I love Scream. I love the whole Scream series.
Mhm.
Like unapologetically, I'm like these are all great. Although I understand that the first one is incredible, and that's what I mean. Like I watch horror movies that I know are probably going to be good, like from word of mouth. But
Yeah.
I saw Scream when I was younger, and I just was like, this is. I was scared, but it was just so fun, and
Yeah.
I so like I will tell people like they will know about me that like, oh, Nash doesn't see horror movies. Nash doesn't watch horror movies. And I'll be like, well, Scream is in my top 15 all time. And they're absolutely blown away. I also could probably say a couple like weird romantic comedies because I'm that guy. But yeah, I'll go with Scream is probably the one that surprises more people in my life.
I own Scream and Scream 2.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen 3 or 4. And then I like the new Scream movie really got me. I'm just like, damn, this was so much fun, and this was everything I wanted to be. And how on the nose but clever it was
Yeah.
about legacy sequels and stuff like that, and the balls it had to take on Star Wars
Yeah.
and like the Last Jedi and everything. I'm just like, oh man, this is going there.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope in the next one they make a comment about Maverick and be like, well,
Yeah.
some of them are great.
It can work. Yeah.
But it's and one thing in it I knew was gonna happen, but boy did it gut me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Scream's great. And what's so impressive is Wes Craven had a whole career in like legit horror.
Mm-hmm.
And like obviously Nightmare on Elm Street has a really dark sense of humor about it because of Freddy.
Yeah.
Wes Craven's New Nightmare really set the stage for Scream to be a thing. Because I remember like I did not watch horror movies growing up. Like most of the time, the only time I watched horror movies was because my brother was watching them, and he's a diehard slasher fan. He's seen every Halloween, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street so many times. And I remember seeing Freddy's New Nightmare and how meta it was, and just being like, what the hell's going on here? And then, of course, Wes Craven brought that into Scream, and not gonna lie, I watched a lot of scary movies when I was growing up. The first 4 of them.
Mm-hmm.
Is there more than 4? I distinctly remember watching the second one a lot on Comedy Central. Though it's like, take my strong hands. But like obviously the first one is like, it's so weird watching a spoof movie of a movie that's already meta about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, okay. It's like you're gonna do that, and I can't get the what's up out of my head because like that is a snapshot of pop culture if there ever was one.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Because God, I remember those commercials still. And Scream was a thing. And I'm glad that it still is. Like it makes me really happy that we got a Scream movie in 2022. That was pretty great.
Yeah.
And making another one. So see how that goes. But my last question for you, Nash, is what do you love most about movies?
Yeah. Man, I watch so many movies that I'm like, I've asked myself this question so often, like, why do I watch so, like, because a lot of them are mediocre to bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes down to a little bit of that whole thing regarding Jonathan Larson, but I love to see different people, different perspectives, different cultures represented in art.
Mm-hmm.
And I like movies as a way to kind of take in that art, because like the lasting effects a movie can have, I feel like are really great, really important. But then your opinion of the way as time goes on, the movie can actually kind of take on new meanings. Movies can take on new meanings. And I love to find those things. I there's times when where I watch 10 movies in a week and I'm like, well, maybe one of them was good, but that one of them was a gem. And I'm like, wow, I really can take something away from this. And so that's why I mean, it's honestly, it's escapism at its core, but I get to escape into something that either makes me think or somebody else's life, or so that's what draws me in. And I think it's a beautiful art form that is kind of has unlimited potential to grow as time advances. So I don't know. That's a long and elaborate answer, but I can't.
I feel like that's the beauty of we change, so the film can change with us and our perception of it. And I know personally, my appreciation of film has evolved, especially since like back in high school when I used to watch things like Paul Blart Mall Cop and Delta Farce, and they were regular things that I watched a lot. And now it's like I could remember the first time I saw No Country for Old Men and thought, what the hell was that ending?
Yeah.
And like the movie's over? And it's one of my top 10 favorite films of all time. And now I watch that ending and just feel something so profound and just being like, world's going to shit.
Yeah.
And we're on the fast track to it.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of difference watching it. I remember being so angry watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail for the first time and realizing like that was the end. And now I laugh so hard every time it ends, because it's just like sometimes it takes a different time. Like I was talking about Spotlight, it's just like sometimes you just need to watch it at a certain time in your life. And I remember taking my cinema class in high school and hating all the Scorsese we watched. I hated Raging Bull so much. I'm just like, this is just two guys yelling the F word at each other for 2 hours. And that's what like 16-year-old Shane got out of that movie. And now I watch it now, and I've gotten such a greater appreciation for Scorsese because I have a more important understanding of why representation is important. And as an Italian American, I can feel something different in his films. And like watching The Godfather as an adult, because I watched that when I was 10. So like, because my grandfather showed me, and because it was my culture. But like as an adult, there's whole other layers to that. And I have this appreciation of like, these are great because this was told by somebody who knows this and has experienced this and felt this. And I have that appreciation. I love doing my Welcome to the Wasteland show because I'm just taking these deep dives and seeing a whole entire director's filmography in a way that it's just like seeing the evolution and the ups and downs. And like, I just watched The Color Purple this past weekend and thinking like, should Steven Spielberg have been the one who made this movie? Probably not, but you know, still Spielberg. And now I'm going to be watching Last Crusade in 2 weeks and I'm loving every second of it because that's personally my favorite Spielberg movie. God, love Indy and Henry Jones Sr. But it's something special, and some of those films stay with you your whole entire life, and you still love them. And especially like I know for myself, someone who appreciates the technical aspects of filmmaking, I can see why these things work so well, and that's pretty cool. But Nash, how I always like to wrap this up, let my guest ask me a question. So what would you like to ask the Wasteland Reviewer? Man,
I put too much thought into this, and then I ended up getting back to the simplest question of all time. So I needed to. I have been super into this format of asking a question recently when I ask people this. So if you had a personal carving of Mount Rushmore, who are you putting up there? Your 4 directors. So I like to say it's personal. So it's not like who you think the 4 greatest of all time. It could be that too. But like for you,
can I split one of their faces in half and have half a face and half a face?
For like the Coen brothers?
Yeah. Specifically, yes. Because they'll definitely be on there.
Okay.
Because like I don't know if there's a director or a pair of directors that speaks to me more than the Coen brothers. Like, that's my humor, that's my sensibility, and there's something that is so weird that just speaks to me about their films, like all of them. Like, I even enjoy Lady Killers to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
And I unabashedly love Intolerable Cruelty. That movie is so funny. But the Coen brothers are up there, especially after my whole entire digging into his filmography. There's something personal about Scorsese to me. And I feel like he's up there because I never thought watching a short film like Italian American could make such an impact on me. I'm just like, my God, these are my relatives. Sitting there just like feeling that kind of experience. And then, watching his stories about Italian Americans and the Catholic guilt's everywhere. It's everywhere. And just being like, yep, I get this. Wes Anderson's definitely up there because I feel like if I were a director, that would be me.
Oh wow.
I would be like so particular about like I would hope that I'd be more like him and less Finchery or Kubrick.
Yeah.
Because like there are a couple of dicks who put their, especially Kubrick, he was the biggest dick of all. And I'll get to him because he's my fourth on Rushmore.
Oh.
But like I can appreciate him as a director, human being, piece of crap, because he did horrible things to his actors. But Wes Anderson just seems like everybody involved loves working with him, except for Gene Hackman, apparently. Apparently he hated working on Royal Tenenbaums, but he was so good. But as I'm looking at his face on my wall, because I have a poster of the Royal Tenenbaums, like I literally have a Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, and Life Aquatic posters right next to each other up there. And I'm a Steve Zissou defender. I love that movie. It's definitely uneven, but it's quirky as hell and so many great things. But like I feel like Wes Anderson realizes that filmmaking is an art form. And if you're gonna art, why not art hard?
Yeah, go all the way, Art. Yeah.
And he does. And I feel like Kubrick would be the last one because like there's just certain films that have had such an incredible impact on me. And there's no arguing that he's one of the greatest artists in the history of cinema. But like 2001 A Space Odyssey changed my world when I watched that. And The Shining is my second favorite horror film of all time, right behind The Thing. And A Clockwork Orange is, there's beneath the ultra violence and the horrible things that that character does in that film, there is something deeply disturbing that film says about humanity. And it's just like, still hits today. And Barry Lyndon's a film that keeps growing on me over time too. Nolan would have been on this if it wasn't for Scorsese kind of like jumping up, but like I've always been a big Nolan fan too, because like he is quite the creator. But like my Mount Rushmore would be the Coens, Scorsese, Wes Anderson, and Stanley Kubrick.
Very nice.
His creepy hobo looking beard. I would specifically pick like him later in life to have that picture up there. And now it's like, what pictures would I have of them? I feel like the Coen brothers haven't changed. They might have gotten slightly grayer, but they still have the same just face. Both of them. Honestly, I don't know if I've seen either of them smile, to be honest. And then I have to pick, do I want little grandpa Scorsese? Or do I want like
big old thick glasses?
Big old thick Carl Fredricksen Scorsese, who's slowly turning into. I feel like I would pick that Scorsese. I like Grandpa Scorsese. I used to get so mad about what he said about comic book movies, and then I realized he said one thing once in an interview, and now people have not let it go. And it's just like, I think it's time to just let him move on.
Being,
He obviously has moved on with his life. We're all the ones just sitting here still getting mad about what he said. But that was a good question. I really enjoyed that. It's definitely taken some shapes, and like some of my other favorites, like I love Mel Brooks. Will always love Mel Brooks. Clint Eastwood was. I love so many of his films, but I think he needs to stop making
oh,
movies. They're
yeah.
slowly like sliding down a
So
mountain.
you watched The Mule then? Did you watch The Mule?
Oh, so I have to say, I feel like The Mule was the most unexpected subversion of my expectations I think I've
Okay.
had in a movie in a long time. Because that trailer told me that this was going to be an intense thriller. And then I watched it, and it's just Clint Eastwood having fun driving a car for 2 hours. Him singing Dean Martin music, having a threesome with a couple of
Oh
20-year-old Mexican girls.
God.
I'm just like,
Oh
what
God.
is this movie? Uh,
Oh no.
I'm just like, I know why he made this movie. He read that script and was just like, yeah, let's do it. His worst, though, is the 1517 to Paris. That was such a misguided movie.
I haven't seen that movie. Is that the one where he took the real life people and put them in the movie? Oh yeah.
So, for all those out there who don't know much about Clint Eastwood as a director, he is notorious for doing one, maybe two takes, and he moves on. Because his whole philosophy is he is one of the chillest, most laid back directors in Hollywood, which is what really weird to me, honestly, thinking about that. But like, he apparently shows up on stage, he's like, go on, do it, and like sits in his chair and just lets the actors do their thing, which I feel like as a strong actor, that's exciting. Like he trusts him, like that's why he loves Morgan Freeman working with him so much, as he trusts him. In Sully working with Tom Hanks, they know their craft. You know who that's not good for? People who don't act.
Mm-hmm.
And then you put three real life soldiers in a movie, and Clint Eastwood just has them do their thing, and they can't act. And this is going to sound mean, but I don't mean this in a mean way. Their life wasn't interesting up until that moment on that train.
Yeah, yeah.
So, like,
Yeah, there's the reason why you like hire actors and like you write a screenplay because we don't want to watch real people just go about their real lives. Oh God.
like there was a club scene in like Europe, and I'm like, I just want to imagine Clint Eastwood being in this place shooting this scene. It's like, and the thing is, it's like they tried to like throw in some things when they were kids, like about religion and stuff like that. I'm just like, these kids, like these guys, no offense, are just normal people. They're soldiers. Some of them are, not all of them were. They did their thing. But that train sequence, the last 15 minutes of the movie, is some of the most intense filmmaking I've seen in a long ass time. And I'm just like, this is the movie. Can you, like, all I imagined was a slick 80 to 90-minute thriller of the buildup on that day to that happening. But no, we have to get these guys' life stories, and they're not very interesting, and they can't act. And it's just like, Clint, what are you doing? And that's why you shouldn't watch that movie. Like, maybe watch the last 10 minutes, and that's it. So don't spend money on it. If you can see the last 10 minutes, it really works. And he just, I don't know. And like, I watched even Cry Macho. And
Yeah.
he's so old. Like I like seeing him in that movie, I'm just like, my God, he really is 90. And like he talks like an old man now, and he walks like an old man. I'm just like,
Maybe it's time to hang it up.
and like he falls in love with a woman who's probably mid-40s, 50.
Oh,
And I'm just like, dude, like
tired of that.
I know you're Clint Eastwood, and you probably could do it in real life, because you're Clint Eastwood, but like it's weird.
Man.
And Crime Macho was a fine film. Like it was fine. The Mule was fine. Richard Jewell was fine. They all have their moments, but like they, I don't know. They just need to hang it up. Still love Clint though. And Terry Gilliam's up there for me too, which is why I was very excited that you brought up Fisher King. Because you want to watch some weird ass movies. Watch some Terry Gilliam. Brazil, yes.
Great movie.
Yes. But Nash, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely. It was an absolute blast.
And hopefully I'll have you on again. And we'll talk about that. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.